morning to viewers. The Colonel speaking to you live from the Grange for British Imperial YouTube Broadcasting. They've got a most unusual Columbia record, L2164, Chopin Nocturnes, Introduction to the First Series by Ernest Newman. This is a sort of lecture on the history of the Chopin Nocturne, I think recorded to commemorate the centenary of John Field, who was a sort of, inventor of the Nocturne, really, I suppose. Here we go. He'll tell you more about it than I can.
The piano nocturne seems to have been the invention of the Irish pianist and composer John Field, who was born in 1782, 28 years before Chopin, and died 12 years before him in 1837. The Field Nocturne was a short piano piece in that vein of tender sentiment that was so much in vogue in the early Romantic period. It derived from the Italian opera aria of the day. The right hand sings a graceful, somewhat sentimental melody, while the left hand maintains an undulating accompaniment. It was the fashion in those days for the opera singer to embellish the melody with turns, trills, runs, and other decorations designed to show off the agility of his voice. Field applied the same device to the melodies of his nocturnes. Chopin took over the spirit, the form, and the technique of the Field Nocturne and developed them all to a point never dreamt of by his predecessor. His 20 nocturnes belong to all epochs of his short life. He published the first 3, Opus 9, in 1833, and the last 2, Opus 62, in 1846. 2 others, both of them early works, were issued after his death. The present selection of 12 is representative of all periods and all forms. We can distinguish 3 main types among them. In the first, one melody dominates virtually the whole work. In the second, 2 contrasted melodies come into play. In the third, this musical contrast is turned to poetic or dramatic uses. The first principle is represented by the first nocturne in our selection, the E-flat major, Opus 9, number 2. Of all Chopin's nocturnes, this comes nearest to the Field type. There are even phrases in it that remind us a little of Field's nocturnes in B-flat major and F major. Chopin's E-flat nocturne, indeed, is the perfect realization of what Field was trying all his life to do. One mood reigns throughout. A phrase is given out in the tonic key, answered by another in the dominant, and then repeated. The melody is festooned with richer embellishments at each repetition of it, in the style of the operatic aria of the time, and just before the end there is one of those florid cadenzas in which the Italian opera singer delighted. In the next record we have the posthumous nocturne in E minor, which is the earliest of them all. Its form, however, is rather more elaborate than that of the E-flat nocturne. The second section brings us not merely a momentary contrast of key, but a well-defined second theme. Then the first theme recurs, this time with simple decorations in the manner of Field. After that, the second theme returns and closes the nocturne. But in spite of the employment of 2 quite distinct themes, this nocturne, like that in E-flat, still expresses only one mood, and the same arpeggio figure is employed throughout in the left hand. In the next nocturne, the B-flat minor, Opus 9, number 1, we see Chopin developing this principle of 2 themes. Here he gives more space to the second than to the first, which only comes in again at the end to clinch matters. But once more the mood is virtually the same throughout, and the left hand arpeggio figure is never departed from, even when the right hand is silent. In the long G major nocturne, Opus 37, number 2, we have an extension of the principle of 2 themes. Now, however, they are made to express 2 different moods, and the contrast is heightened by the fact that the arpeggio figure that always accompanies the first theme is abandoned whenever the second theme appears. The nocturne in B major, Opus 32, number 1, goes back to the simpler type of the E-flat. One mood prevails and the arpeggio accompaniment is maintained throughout. Chopin, however, ends with a sort of recitative that brings both a new element of form and a new emotional significance into the nocturne. For the first time in our selection, we see the dramatic spirit at work. In the F minor Nocturne, Opus 55, number 1, we have an extension of this dramatic purpose. The middle section is relatively short, but very significant. It not only provides a musical contrast to the main theme, but takes us for a while into a completely different mental world. We have travelled by now some way from field.
Well, that explained it, didn't it, viewers? Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you and goodbye.